Hello, it's Shannon from Audio Energy yet again, and this week we're going to be looking at one of my mixes. It's an old song that I did years ago, but I'm going to give it a bit of a rehash, so stick around, have a look. Okay, welcome back to Audio Energy. My name's Shannon, and this week I'm looking at one of my mixes from a song called The Sorceress Ball. I did this about 6-7 years ago and put it on an album I called The Super String Shaman, which was just an album that I came up with. And you might still be able to hear a song, this particular song and a few others that I did. They're old mixes before I had the degree and a lot more skills and things that I have nowadays. And so anyway, I'm going to show you a little bit of version of the song. And why don't we get started here? I'm just going to start my screen capture. So here we go. Here's a bit of the Sorceress Ball from the Super String Shaman. Okay. So that's a little bit of the version of the intro there. You can hear that it's a bit dirty, it's a bit overcompressed in some parts, probably a little bit out of balance here and a little bit lo-fi in general. What I've done and what I'm going to be looking at in this section today is going to have a look at some VSTs, the pianos in particular at the moment, and maybe I'll do a few sections over the next few days or next few weeks and put up a few videos of this because it's something that's ongoing, and it's a good idea if I can just sort of show you what I'm doing while I'm actually working through it. Now, what I've done first is we have here two VST pianos. The first one is by Contact, it's the Grandeur, and I've basically given it a little bit of hardness in the keys, so basically you're going to hear a little bit more sharpness and brightness in the sound of it. Going to the tone, I've reduced a fair bit of the bass because it has some heavy resonance there. Reduced a little bit of the body, so it's but I don't want it too muddy. I still want to have that brightness. I've increased a fair bit of what they call air, which is more sort of the higher end in the sharpness and brightness of the instrument. I'm using the Big Studio preset. As you can see, you've got quite a few here. So the Big Studio is actually quite nice, especially when you really give it a good drive if you're just using it for other reasons, practice or whatever. But I've just pulled a lot of that back today because I'm going to be using some other channels such as a bit of piano reverb and things like that after the fact. So what I've done is I've increased the sustain, I've reduced the resonance here down to more of a natural sound for the piano. Also in dynamic range down here, got the overtones there, so I was playing a lot of that. Kept everything else pretty much standard. The resonance is here, I'm going to pull down, but you can actually use that with pedals as well, so it's quite an interactive one. And it essentially sounds like this. Now, because I haven't done the song for a long time, I had to rewrite everything in, and so I used my old reference track, which is the one I showed you at the beginning. It's always good to have a reference track when you're wanting to mix something, unless you want it completely original and you don't need to really listen to any sounds. But I will look at that issue of using source tracks and things maybe in another episode, and why you should actually have that there so you can really sound match to if you're working with samples and things like that. But that's for another lesson. Coming back down here, my second piano, I'm using Easy Keys, and I've just put it on a basic pop preset, but what I've also done is increase the octave, so it's playing one level, one octave up from what the other piano was playing. Everything else is pretty much stock standard, and this one sounds like this. So that's what it sounds like there. If we play them both together, and I'll pan these over now. So there we are, they're the two instruments. Now what I'm going to do, I want to actually get these down to audio. Now there's a number of different ways you can do it. I like to actually, I play around with these a bit, so this isn't set in stone, but what I'm going to do on this one is just, I'm going to go to my audio channels here, those ones, and I'm going to set the output on these to just my regular output, because I don't want them going through my two sub channels that I've already created. This is just going to basically, I'm going to click record here too. Okay, fair enough. They don't have ins yet, but I'll come back to that. And these two here, these are currently going at my regular output, but I want to change those over. So I come down to this one. I'm going to choose some buses that aren't being used there. So I'll go 4748, and this one I'll use 4950. I want to keep them separate. I don't want each sound coming through both. So these have no input because they're running straight from the VST. But this one here, I'm going to set this output bus here, and we're going to go 4748 because that's the first one. And on this one, hang on, we're going to there, go to bus, and we'll go 4950. So each piano is going to a new audio channel. We're going to print that down and record it. Okay, so what we do now, and now the audio that's going to be heard from these channeling through here is going to go straight at my output instead of going through my submixers. And on my submixers I have, you guessed it, the slate tools. That's just getting started. I'm redoing these, so that's why I've changed it around a little bit. So I just want to re-record these down. I wasn't quite happy with the sound that it was before. So as I said in the beginning, I've reduced a lot of the reverb and the resonances, reduced a lot of that. I've reduced a little bit of bass on the low end and just increased a little bit of the air around the higher end of the instrument. Now, let's have a look. So these now have an input and they have an output. Okay, I'm going to go to these two channels here. I'm going to hold Alt-Shift because I'm using Windows and turn those two on as well. Now, before I actually record, I'll set this back here. Before I actually record, there's a couple of different things you can do here. If you like, you can actually record each individual instrument to its own track, and you can have a bus channel in between that will run between this MIDI channel and the audio channel, and you can put a few different settings on it. You can actually put on like a tape and an EQ and compressor and things like that. But that comes down to using, making sure that your velocities on your instruments are actually properly measured. Now I'm going to, you can see here that these instruments, some of the notes are higher, some of the notes are lower, things like that. I want to actually change these a little bit. So I'm going to just highlight all this. I'm going to go into my velocity. I'm going to change velocity here. Yeah, you can see that's on 96. Now they're pretty loud. I want to actually increase them a little bit up to maybe 108, 112, something like that. There you go. It's a little bit stronger. So they are going to be louder. They're going to look, well, technically it's not loudness. It's actually velocity. So it's going to be a stronger signal. Remember we talked about energy in one of the other tutorials that I did when we were talking about dynamic range. We're talking about sonic energy, and velocity is based on that as well. So it's better to have something that's reasonably strong but not peaking out. And we're going to go down here. You see I have randomized ticked here, so I'm going to, that's on 5. That's pretty good. What you're going to see, it's going to draw pretty close together. But what randomize actually does is make the velocity sound like it's being played a little more human rather than digital and that kind of sound as well. So just looking here, I'm just going to see, okay, I have 10 minutes, okay, 10 minutes. So I'm going to apply this. There we are. And now, in the background, you can see that if I stretch it out, they've actually sort of brought everything up to a bit more of an equal level. And I'm going to do the same with this other channel as well. I don't want this one as loud, so I might, because it's there really just to support the first one. Okay, so you can see that's very similar. I'm going to do the same thing. The settings are the same now, but I'm going to bring that down to about maybe 97, so it's going to be a little less. Okay, I've done that, and there we are. Just panning out. There we go. So basically the notes are not going to be so drastically different in sound and pitch and things like that. They're actually going to be quite close together, and you shouldn't hear too much change. Now that's all ready to go. If I want to, I can put a compressor on here. Go to compressor. And I could put the red on, but I actually want this to go through and sound a lot more natural, and I can EQ the very bass kind of audio that I've printed down from that, and I just kind of like to work that way. I like to hear raw sounds and then start to polish them and clean them up, because these sounds are actually quite nice as they are. They just need a little bit of tightening and cleaning up. So so that's these. What I'm going to also do now, so they're ready to record. I'm going to turn that off, and I also want to show you my drums here. Let's have a look. So here's the drum channels. I'm going to turn these on. Might take a little bit. Yep, updating. Okay, so they should be all present now. And I'm going to come up here, and I'm just going to solo all these, and we'll have a listen to the drums. Now essentially what I have is, at the moment, I've written all the drums in this drum track here, but I'm multi-channeling out into all these others. So you can see here, so I'll open my so here's my kit. Alright, and everything in the mixer, actually I'll just open that again, everything in the mixer, when we look at the mixer here, there's all my channels. So track 1 for one kick, track 2 for kick out, track 2 as well. So I've mixed the kick out and the kick sub into one track, so it gives it a bit more of a punchy sound, and so on all the way through. But I haven't used these ones here. Actually, I should turn my room on a little bit. There we are. Okay, that's track 8. So 8. Yep, there we go. Okay. So what I've done, I've written out my, let's go and have a look. Here's all my drums. Okay, there's all my drums there. I've also worked all the velocity and everything like that. Everything's all set up. Okay. And what I've done on my main channel, because the kick is coming out here, and all the rest are being sent to their proper channels and so forth. What I've done is EQ each channel, so the kick, as I said before. This is the inside kick microphone, as if the microphone was inside the kick drum. But I've also put a gate on it, just to make it a little tighter and a little more punchy. And then I've mixed that with the sub. So if we have a listen to this. I've also put on a tape for the kick, and I've got that on 1/2" 2-track. Okay. Now, one thing I will tell you with tape, and I did a bit of research on this. If you have a 1/2" 2-track tape, basically that's allowing a broader range across the tape for large transients as they're being hit. So you basically just have 2 tracks, and each track has quite a bit of room to allow it to spread. So when you're increasing the gain on the tape here, and and you're pushing up, because tape generally has, a lot of tape machines generally have a bump at the low end and a little bit at the higher end as well. So what this is doing is allowing more of that saturation and drive that's in the tape, comes from the tape machine, to really allow those big solid kick sounds to come out and have a lot more room. Technically, if it was a drum track, that's what it would be doing. So this is simulating that, and it's allowing a larger space for the transients to breathe and move around and come back. So that's why I have set it on the half-inch, the half-inch 2-track. I also have, what have we got here? Now this is just a basic EQ and stuff. I've just sort of put on a mix bus to give it a little bit more warmth and drive, so it gives it a bit of character from the that simulated desk. I've put on my lift, and that gives the kick bass and that a little bit more punch and everything as well. A little bit of basic EQ through the Neve simulator. And sometimes, you can put a compressor on here as well. We've got all these compressors here. But I've actually put a different one on the back. This is the red, and it's so I'm gonna, there we are, and I've got about 3 dB. So it's about neg 17, so it's dipping into it a bit. Ratio is 1.5, slower attack, so I don't want to smash my transients. When you have a fast attack, it's really smashing down on those transients, and it can really change the shape and sound of the instrument that you're compressing. When you're looking at the release, it's halfway, a little bit past halfway, closer to the faster range. You can put on an auto release there, but I like to control everything myself. You can put a high pass on if you want to. It's full mix in, and give it a bit of a drive as well. That's going to actually just drive a bit more of the compressor internally, and you get a little bit of saturation effect from that. So you can hear this track is starting to come together with a number of different qualities and things. I'm going to take that off. We have our pianos. I'm going to print my pianos down, and in the next video I do, next week maybe, or maybe even sooner if I have some time, I'm going to look at some other instruments and show you how everything sounds when we get along to that next section. So that's it for now, and I printed everything down, and we're ready to go into that next stage. I also have guitars there. I might look at some guitars next time as well. So I hope this has been helpful for you. This is Audio Energy, Shannon signing off. Please subscribe. If you like the videos, please send them to other people and say, hey, look at this guy, he's doing some mixing and stuff, and he's working it out. So again, thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.